everyone. My name is Scott Story, and I've got a sketchbook that I'd like to show that was from 2017 to 2023, more or less. That's a long time to do a sketchbook, but at the time I wasn't doing much drawing. I was recovering from a burnout, and this sketchbook helped me do that. Without further ado, we'll start in 2017. We were at the Indiana Fiddlers Gathering, and this was a musician warming up that I did a quick sketch of. This is a collage of fiddlers from musicians at the Fiddlers Gathering. We had a lot of fun, and we haven't been back since because the weather has warmed up such that every time that we want to go, it's been in the 90s. Just too hot to really sit out and draw. At the time, I was also really studying, learning how to draw cats. And as I put here, this was probably based on our cat named Dylan at the time. Dylan's long gone, bless his heart. A drawing of our barn window. The beginning of my interest in designing heraldry, testing out a new set of colored pens. I've always been fascinated in dinosaurs, as you can probably tell. Study where I tried to capture the soft roundness of the feminine form. Now, this was from the Fisher's Blues Festival, where I did sketches of some of the fellow attendees. Blues phenomenon Samantha Fish was playing there, and I've been a big fan of hers for a long time, and she did not disappoint. More attendee. Like most artists, I can pay better attention to what's going on around me when I've distracted myself with sketching. Rough layouts for a Christmas card I designed for a company. Hard to say what's going on here, but I do like the old cat with a pipe. First time I was testing out watercolor markers. This was totally not how you use them, but it was still kind of fun. Johnny Saturn. I was working on making a 3D representation of Johnny Saturn's helmet that I was doing, I think, in SketchUp. The character designs and character concepts were a comic that I was going to do that ended up being a novel that I have yet to publish called The Apex Killers. A concept sketch for a cover that I did for Ian Healy's novel The Path. Unused elf girl. I still kind of like her. Just wild expressionist fun with art. A silly marker sketch from a place that Benita and I visited several times, a sheep farm. A logo I did, yarn from the farm, or at least the rough sketch for said logo. Another proposed cover for the Apex Killers. I should finish that book. The proposed thumbnail for the Name of the Shadow, which at that time was as yet unpublished, similar to what eventually was developed. A colored watercolor sketch from the wooden structure that's at the Indianapolis Arts Center in the Arts Garden. A picture of Benita knitting. And that's why we were at the Indianapolis Art Garden. She was letting me draw while she entertained herself. My concept for a sea monkey lady, kind of like it. A futuristic Johnny Saturn concept piece. I really dig this. It's eventually developed into the idea for a character that I used in a novel. The character's name was Quaidon. Benita knitting, or at least her hands. Like I said, I made only intermediate use of my sketchbook at this time. My time being a web cartoonist really just about burned me out for a long time. Lots of attempts at both finding form in scribbling and drawing from my imagination. modern representation of Candleman. It was a superhero I made up when I was, 8 or 9, 10 maybe, I'm not sure. And he later appeared in a short story in the Johnny Saturn universe in a prose book. That book was called Changing of the Guard. And of course it's still available on Amazon. More weird conceptual stuff, in this case a cyborg knight, a giant digging a river. I don't know who this character is or where I used her from, but she reminds me a little bit of Wonder Woman with the cross bracelet. A Johnny Saturn concept, although it looks a little more like Dr. Doom. Persephone Sen, one of the characters from the Johnny Saturn universe. Always liked her. Another Johnny Saturn concept piece, and I was going for the difference between pen and ink and then solid blacks. I thought it looked kind of cool. My period where I started studying dancers' feet because they were all beat up and really well developed and very interesting. These were all taken from photos of faces that I've collected, in this case obviously women, and then kind of worked into a montage. The face broken into its planes of light and shade. I think this eventually became the cover of a Johnny Saturn comic. A more developed version of the image that eventually became the cover to Name of the Shadow, a novel that's still available on Amazon.com that I wrote. Kind of a cool character design, never really used it. Automatic drawing where I just drew and let things just develop out of my subconscious. I think I may have intended to make a drawing out of this, but it never advanced beyond this stage. Kind of a sword and sorcery kind of thing. More imaginary sketches and doodles. That was the roof of a barn with a horse on it near where I lived. I lived there for 20 years or so. This was a character that ended up in a Johnny Saturn short story that was in the anthology of my short stories called Changing of the Guard. I'm not sure what I was going for. I can certainly see the details I had working. This would still be kind of interesting to develop into a Brotherhood of Broken Men. Early idea for a novel at the time I was calling Enter the Spider Knight, but which eventually became the Brotherhood of Broken Men, a novel that I'm working on right now. Another concept that didn't get used. I think at this point I was starting to learn how to draw horse anatomy. I'm still no expert, still working on it, but I had to start somewhere. But when you want to learn a new form, that's what a sketchbook is for all your ugly drawings that help get these things into your working memory and help familiarize yourself with the anatomy that you're trying to work on. A view into my weird imagination and all the weird shit that runs around my head. More weirdness. Look at the giant orange tongue. Yep, I don't need drugs. My imagination is pretty fertile on its own. I think that was Jamie Heineman off Mythbusters that I was drawing. Drawing from TV is a lot of fun because you have to capture an image in your head and hold it long enough to draw, because sure enough, the characters on TV rarely will hold still long enough or return to the correct angles to really do anything finer. Thus, it's very rough. I was studying patterns at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. I believe they now called Newfields, but it will always be the Indianapolis Museum of Art, the IMA to me. Now, here I'm designing the very studio that I'm sitting in. When we moved in here, what I wanted to do, watercolor table, drawing table, rolling cart, my art closet, the two windows in the front. Yeah, it's not very far from, I don't have any easels out, but I don't like to paint on easels, but not too far from what it developed in. And that's it. That was a whole roughly 5.5 years worth of sketchbook drawings. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that this was an interesting look into my creative process. Thanks so much. Bye.